Welcome back to Book Break. I've got a bunch of unusual book recommendations for you today. This is a stack of books that I have loved that have very unusual narrators. For example, diving straight into the first book here, Open Throat by Henry Hoke, the narrator of this book is a mountain lion. A queer, hungry mountain lion who is discovering for the first time things like climate change and homelessness. This is such a great book. It's very unusual. It's a really quick, easy read. So you can see kind of how many words to a page here. It's quite poetic in the way it's written. You can read this easily all in one sitting and then think about it for such a long time afterwards. So through the eyes of this mountain lion, you kind of witness humans and start to question behaviours that maybe we don't always question when it's seen through the eyes of this creature from nature. It's very funny at times, the mountain lion, who later is called Hecate. Hecate the lion listens to quite absurd fragments of conversations for the people walking past, and they really did make me laugh. It's also very moving. So Hecate lives near a camp where a lot of homeless people live, and you really kind of through his eyes start to see how outrageous it is that we as humans have allowed this, have allowed people to not be looked after in this way. Climate change has also caused this environment to become more dangerous, both for Hecate and for the humans who live in and around it. It's quite a surreal book at times. It's really surprising and it's a lot of fun. I really loved this. More books should be narrated by mountain lions, please. Briefly a Delicious Life by Nell Stevens is narrated by Blanca, who is a queer, vengeful, horny teenage ghost. Blanca is one of my favourite narrators. She has been there for centuries and she has watched so many people come through this monastery. And this particular story is about the true story of when the musician Chopin came to stay in this monastery in Mallorca with his lover George Sand. And Blanca becomes quite infatuated with George, who is this very intriguing to Blanca woman who wears men's clothes and is like no woman that Blanca has ever seen before. Blanca is a great character because she lived in the world for 13 years as a young girl, was ostensibly straight as far as a 13-year-old girl can be, but she had a relationship with a boy, and it's only in death, and we do learn more about her very sad story that led up to her death. In death, this whole new world has been unlocked for her and she realises the beauty of women, and suddenly there's women that she desires and has desired many women over the centuries she's been haunting this monastery. Again, it's a very funny book. Nell Stevens has such a good way with words. There's a lot of wordplay in here. I actually got to hear Nell Stevens came and read part of this book aloud for a video which I will link to below. It's up on our Macmillan YouTube channel. And hearing her read it out was so great. It's so rhythmic the way this book is written. I just absolutely loved it. It's also really fun having this kind of slightly supernatural narrator because we get to jump around and see things that you wouldn't in a kind of more traditional narrative. So we get to jump back and forth in time, kind of fast forward all the way into the future and see things that are going to happen. It was really clever. Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies by Maddie Mortimer is a very poignant book because this one is narrated from the perspective of the cancer that is travelling through the body of the protagonist. So Leah is a woman who has discovered that she has cancer, and we hear her story narrated from the inside. And there are lots of other characters inside her body. It's very clever, it's very unusual. So the chemo is called the Red Devil, and we see red kind of travelling through her body as well. There are characters in there made of her memories of trauma, her cells. The kind of physical and mental and spiritual parts of her body all merge in this book and they become one, and often the voice of the cancer says we, meaning the cancer and Leah. They are kind of made of the same stuff and they explore their past and their memories together. It's a very playful book. You can see in pages like this that the author Maddie Mortimer is kind of having fun with the way that words can fit onto a page. Like this, look how beautiful that is. The book is also about a mother-daughter relationship. So Leah has a daughter called Iris, and a lot of the book is about their relationship compared with Leah's relationship to her own mother, which was very fraught. She grew up in this religious family and was very neglected and kind of cast aside by them. My camera unexpectedly ran out of battery, so sorry if I'm suddenly in a slightly different place. I had to change the battery and set it back up again. As I was saying, Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies is a really unusual book because it is told from the inside out, and that turns out to be a really intimate way of telling a story. Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro feels very relevant right now because this book is narrated by an artificial intelligence. Clara is a little robot who you will completely fall in love with. So in this book, AI has really advanced and has been developed to create these artificial friends that people purchase for their children. And so Clara has been purchased to be the companion to a little girl called Josie. Forgot the name of the little girl, it's Josie. So Clara has been bought to be Josie's artificial friend, and this book is really exploring what makes us human. What is the difference between Clara, this artificial intelligence, and Josie, a real little girl? You'll find that no matter what your thoughts at the moment about AI, you'll find that it's a very hard question to answer in the end, what the real difference might be. Towards the end, Ishiguro offers up a possible explanation for what it is that makes us us, which was so beautiful that I burst into tears on the street where I was listening to the audiobook. But he doesn't give any straightforward answers. This is definitely a book that will leave you thinking about it, leave you making up your own mind about what it is that makes us who we are and what makes us human. Nutshell by Ian McEwan is completely nuts. This is a murder mystery story narrated from the perspective of the unborn child inside one of the potential murderers. So basically it's narrated by a fetus, but an extraordinarily intelligent and witty fetus who knows an awful lot about art and culture and history and has all of these profound observations about the world and is very wry, and this book made me laugh so much. But it's not just funny, it's also dark, it's also mysterious, and it's also very, very clever because the book is essentially a retelling of Hamlet. Gertrude becomes Trudy, the mother. Claudius becomes Claude, the lover. Hamlet is the fetus. And it's really page-turning. It's not so much a murder mystery because you know who done it. It's more of a how done it and a will they get caught for it mystery. So it's a really, really good gripping plot as well as being completely bonkers. The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak has a few different narrators, one of which is a tree. And genuinely, while reading this book, I felt like more books should be narrated by trees. I loved it. It was such a good perspective. The book is set between 1970s Cyprus and present-day London, and it's these two generations. So the parents who have come from war-torn Cyprus through to their daughter growing up in London. But the tree travelled with them, or at least a cutting of the tree travelled with them, and so this tree has roots in both places. The tree has also witnessed really terrible tragedies in the parents' lives and sort of shows how this trauma can be carried through generations. And finally, the last book I've got here to show you is actually the next book on my TBR. I'm very excited to read this one. Now I Am Here by Chidi Ebere. And what makes this narrator so unusual is that you don't really know who he is. We know he is an officer, but we don't know his name, his nationality, we don't know which side of the war he is on. And so the book is really about how war can turn ordinary people into criminals, how it can spark so much violence, even in people who never would have thought that was in their nature. So we get to follow this one individual story, but because the narrator is so unnamed and unknown, he kind of stands in for so many wider stories, which I think is a really clever idea. So I'm really excited to see that play out. So we've gone from having books narrated by lions and ghosts and babies to just unknown people who you can't quite put your finger on. Everywhere along that range is very interesting to me. So let me know in the comments below if you have any more book recommendations like this narrated by very unusual perspectives. I'll also link here to a video I've made before on books that are unlike anything else you have ever read before. So if you like books that are a little bit weird and quirky like this, do click through for more recommendations. And I'll see you next time.